Yeah, we're good, mate.
All right, cool. So now, just basically, idea is just to give a little bit of history of Coerver Coaching, background of Coerver Coaching, and then maybe a way that we can almost implement it into our club. Myself and Rich are not here to sell anybody on Coerver Coaching. We're here just to give a bit of background on the program and a little bit of history, and then Rich is going to go through some session plans later in the presentation. So that's kind of the plan. Liam, we've lost the screen, mate.
Oh, you have?
There you go.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll go into the history. There you go. There's your first slide.
There you go. So now just, one of the things about Coerver, we've got Hazy on the call. Obviously, we've got Liam, Tim, Michael, Rich, Vince, Kevin O'Keefe as well, and Anne. I think it's fair to say that Coerver Coaching has implemented or helped implement our coaching over the years. So it's something that it's certainly changed the way I coach, especially with the younger kids. Most of us have gone through some good licenses. I've gone through my Premier WB license, but certainly Coerver has helped me mold myself as a coach, probably with ages kind of 6, 7 through 12. Which, if we're honest, a lot of the ages that we work with. So a little bit of history on Coerver obviously started with Charlie and Alf in 1984. Has grown there. 34 years now, and it continues to grow in the US and beyond. So next slide, Liam.
Okay, mate.
So kind of a little bit. Coerver is the world's #1 soccer skills teaching method. It's a global football grassworks network. The one thing that I like about Coerver, and what attracted me to Rush, is that it's a network of coaches. It's a brand. It's sharing of ideas. It's coaches working together. And I think that a lot of the stuff that you have with the Rush, you also have with Coerver. So that's one of the things that there is in common. There's no hiding anything. You're sharing ideas. You're sharing coaching ideas. Some of us go to Colorado for Rush. We go to California with Charlie in December for Coerver. And there's a lot of things that are similar, kind of strong. So.
Is it where is it biggest at the moment? Is it biggest in the US? Is it biggest in Japan?
No, it's Japan. Japan by far. Japan by far. They have schools of excellences. I couldn't even tell you the numbers, but it just blows your mind. Blows your mind the amount of kids to have playing out there. In the US, I think it's fair to say Colorado's pretty strong.
Okay.
Pretty strong. Most states have licenses for Coerver Coaching now. So.
Okay. Great. Cool.
So there we go. So then 84 to 2018 in 30 countries. Just go to the next one, Liam.
Sure.
And here's some of the clubs and federations that utilize the Coerver Coaching curriculum. So we got Michael's Newcastle United up there in the middle. AC Milan, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Munich, French Football Association. So it's something that's proven, that's something that's strong, and it's been around for 30, 34 years. Certainly is a training program.
Do you know, in those clubs or programs, are Coerver providing the coaches, or are they providing the curriculum that the club coaches use?
They provide the curriculum. They provide the curriculum to the coaches, is my understanding, and then you'll have whoever it is will come in and kind of oversee it. But really, it's providing the curriculum to the coaches to implement it with the younger ages.
They don't bring in like a specialist Coerver coach as such through Coerver.
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
Okay.
You could probably speak to Gibber. Gibber did some cool stuff with Newcastle.
Okay.
Back home. But yeah, I know over here the stuff that we do with Coerver with the clubs is we'll provide the curriculum and then we'll have somebody go in to oversee the curriculum and delivered in the right way.
Okay.
So this is the kind of this slide, and actually the next slide is probably my favorite slide. Is I would say, Liam, how many of our coaches work the ages of 7 through 12?
It's got to be the majority. Say I think we have around 40 coaches across all the clubs. You got to think, 25 plus, I would imagine.
Right, and that's so that's as you go through your licenses, sometimes as you go through your licenses, as you want to get to 11v11, and everyone wants to get to the highest license possible. But the majority of us, we are working with the ages 6, 7, 12. So I think it's imperative that we kind of don't forget that, especially with the most successful coaches kind of work at those ages. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the next screen, Liam,
yeah.
So if you look here, 12 is for 99% of grassroots players. So I think it's important to remember, as much as we put high school and college, that we need to develop our younger players. They're our future for our clubs.
Yeah. Guys, can you just make sure your microphone is muted if you're not talking? Because I can hear you making your dinner in the background. So just mute all microphones so we can hear Si. There we go. Thank you. You good for the next one, Si?
Yeah, just skip through these quickly, I think.
Okay.
Just a couple of... So here we have skill is the foundation to all parts of the game that can be built on. You can't be a technical player. You can't be a great player unless you're technically first. I know I've been coaching a high school for the last 2-3 years, and we've got some great athletes, but technically, are they good enough to move the ball and pass the ball and comfortable on the ball? And if I'm being honest, I'd say they're not. And I'd open it up to anybody else, but technically, I would say older players are not technically strong enough.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I spoke last year. I spoke to the Chicago Fire Academy and their new head of coaching that came in, Cedric Catanoy, I think is his name. And that when he first came into the role, that was his biggest difference between the Europeans and the American players that he was now working with. He said it was the technical points, specifically playing in tighter spaces, receiving under pressure. He felt that was one of the biggest differences he noted between the kids that he'd left behind at PSG to the kids he was now working with at the Fire. So, I think on the Coerver as well, and Si, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was Gareth Bale not brought up in his early stages of development using a lot of the Coerver methodology? Was he not involved heavily in because I'm sure they were using it for a while. He got interviewed and mentioned that this is where he learned a lot of that stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move on to the next one. There you go.
So then just to follow up from Liam, just a couple of quotes here, just from different respected coaches in the game. Here's one here from Del Bosque. And if we go to the next one, I think, Liam.
Yeah.
Klinsmann. So Jurgen Klinsmann. And then we should have one more from Julio.
There you go. Yeah. Do you want to talk to the pyramid there a little, or does that come later?
It comes a little bit later.
Okay.
Mate, so it comes a little bit later. So here we go. Here's a quiz, and I'm just going to have everybody chime in and see if they can name all the players here. So feel free to chime in, guys. Who's anybody but Liam?
Hazy's got to know a few. Remember to unmute your microphone as well if you're trying to say something. Let's see. Is anyone still there? Who's there?
I think one is Cruyff, yeah.
Cruyff, yeah. That's one.
Van Basten.
Mm-hmm.
That Peter Beardsley, bottom right. Yep. Stanley Matthews, top right. Yep. Yeah, couldn't tell you the rest. Is it Van Basten?
Yep, Van Basten was said. It's not Beckenbauer, is it?
Top left, Beckenbauer.
Mm-hmm.
You said Peter Beardsley already?
Try to figure out who that blonde is in the middle below Van Basten. It's a German player, I think, is it? And I don't know who that is with the tash.
Neither do I, Liam.
Zico, maybe? Zico, I don't know. Revellino, because he was one of the moves, was he not? I think there was a Zico and the Revellino. That's about the only two I can remember.
Let's jump to the next one, the pyramid.
Here you go, mate.
There we go. So here's the pyramid of player development. Much like the one thing, again, I was talking about, one of the reasons why I like the Rush and I like Coerver is, I think kind of structured. So you look at the Chicago Rush and the Rush, you've got the pyramid of player. Was it the player pyramid pathway, Liam? Is that right?
Something like that, yeah. The player development pyramid or player development pathway, whichever you prefer.
So again, here you look at the Coerver model here: ball mastery, receiving and passing, 1v1 attack. What's the next one? I can't even see that properly. Speed, finishing, and group play. So again, it's structured, it's organised. It just gives structure to training and sessions. But just jump to the next one, Liam. And here's the moves, so change of direction, stop-start moves, feints, and there's 1v1 moves as well. And Simo, do you want to fire off a few moves for each one, just before we move on?
Yeah, typically we do the different moves on different days, so we start on a Monday with attacking moves, so it could be a scissors, a step over, a lean and push, which would be a Rummenigge. Change of direction, usually typically on Tuesdays, second day of camp, Cruyff, Zico, half Zico. Again, we adjust these for the level of players that we've got. Stop starts in yellow there on Wednesdays. So you've got like a Beardsley, a Rivellino, Flying Beardsley, Maradona, those sort of moves. And then we also have the 270 moves, which is typically on Thursdays. So L shape, V shape, twist off, inside, outside, those sort of moves. So some that you may have seen before, some they may know, some that you might be able to know if you saw them, but don't know the names of them.
Right, and I think the important thing is, and I remember this when I was growing up back home, is you can have all the moves in the world, and this is, I know Charlie's big on this, you can have all the moves in the world, and my dad used to describe somebody's got all the moves in the world as a circus player. You can have all the moves in the world, but you have to be able to implement the game at the right time. So I think it's important to recognize that you need to coach the moves, but you also need to know where and when to move them, to use them to make sure that it's successful in a game. So it's not just doing the moves, it's working on the moves, but making sure players know where and when to use them on the field.
That's good.
Quick session planner. So session planner, that's how a typical Coerver coaching session is kind of built up. So we go from the warm-ups, and you can see all the way through how a session is put together. Next one, Liam. And then with Coerver coaching, the model is you never go above 5v5. The 5v5 is the biggest game you'll play, and you can see some of the points here: multiple goals, shooting lines, limited touches, passes to score. It's just everything's small and tight, and trying to make decisions in tight areas. Some of the benefits: more playing time, more conditioning. Coaches can evaluate skill, and really, honestly, as we all know, if it's a smaller game, 5v5, more touches on the ball, more goals are being scored, more chances being created. Therefore, hopefully, you're producing more creative players. And then, Simo, do you want to chime in on these next three slides, just about where and when on the field?
Yeah.
Is he there?
Yeah.
Next slide, Liam.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Yeah. So you can see on the 2v1, there's obviously a chance to exploit the numbers up situation and the space on the wings. So that could be obviously relating to the 7v7 or 9v9 or 11v11 game here. a numbers up situation, and it's a 2v1. So we're looking at, it's not just moves we're looking at, it's also passing combinations, and that's part of the curriculum as well. There's also middle of the field that you see there, the central areas where there's a 2v2, where you need to obviously be able to move off the ball, and it's all about decision making. I think Simon touched on that earlier. Not just about being able to do the moves, it's about where to do them and also the decisions that you're making. Sometimes it's a pass, sometimes it's a dribble. Sometimes your teammate's taking a defender away and you can exploit the space with a dribble. And then we've got the 3v3 tight areas. I mean, one team that certainly springs to mind, I think we've mentioned before in Google Hangouts, is like Barcelona. It's not even a 3v3, it's a 5v8 on the edge of the box, and they're finding intricate ways to break the lines, to get in behind, and this is an example of a 3v3, and you might use combination play or individual skill to break the lines.
Yeah, I just noticed that Anne Greco jumped on. Are you there, Anne?
Getting her dinner.
I just saw she jumped on. Hey, Anne? Yeah, maybe she'll come back. But no, if I think about like a Coerver kid, if you I'd like Anne to speak about Missy a little bit. Missy went through Coerver for years, playing I think Winona State now, a technical player, very strong on the ball, and she had Carlos for a couple of years as well. Actually, Missy had Carlos for a couple of years, so she'd be a good person to kind of jump in and say a few words about Coerver. And I know, like, so down in Oswego, isn't it, Liam? I know Johnny's on now, but you've got Laggers and some of the boys down there did Coerver for a few years as well, I think. Yeah. And I know, like, let me think, like AJ Kirby, he did Coerver for a few years, and he's going to he's going to go next year to D1 Dayton, yeah. So no, I would just a few people to kind of chime about that kind of how it works and the importance of Coerver and technical training at the right ages. Hey, Anne?
Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't get my microphone unmuted. I heard your commentary about how it helps development of players. I mean, Melissa was telling me actually yesterday that she was talking it out to kids at the tournament last weekend, and authentically it made her the player that she is. I mean, you gave her confidence with the ball and allowed her to see the field and execute with creativity. I mean, it was an amazing part of her soccer development. Same goes for Julie, who was supposed to play college as well. Yeah. I don't see kids. I don't see them developing that creativity and confidence without that kind of foundation.
And what age, Anne, did the kids do the training until? What age were they in Coerver till?
Well, I mean, my middle daughter was probably in it until 11 or 12, but then my older daughter had decided she wanted to play goalkeeper until she was like 12 and spent a big portion of her time in the goal, and from like UA, U9 to U12, U13, and then she decided she didn't like to play goal anymore, and Coerver was what gave her the ability to become an effective field player. So she just started her Coerver training at like U12, and she would not have been able to manage that transition back into being effective on the field without the time she spent in the camp.
Brilliant. I think Sai was talking about mainly 7 to 12-year-olds. Sai, what do you think your biggest age group involved in Coerver just now is? What age group, just by rough numbers?
Honestly, 8 through 12. Coerver's obviously been around a while now, so it certainly has a following. We have an elite camp up north, a residential camp up north. But 80% of the kids are ages 8 through 12, 8 through 13.
Okay. Good. All right. Do you want to open it up to questions before Simo moves on to do the session plans?
Let's do that. But then also, like I said earlier, I'm certainly not here to sell Coerver. I'm here to the importance of technical training at the younger ages. And we've got these session plans that Rich is going to come and go over next, but certainly share more of them. And I just think it's important to get the right training at the younger ages.
Yeah, I suppose maybe one of the questions I'd have is what are some ways that you, Rich, other staff have found the best way to get the skills to transfer into the game? Because I know that was one of the things when we did it, was trying to get the kids to use the skills learned within a game environment. It's one thing to do it in open play with no opposition, but then come game day, it was trying to get them to use the moves that they'd learned. So what tips or what ways have you guys found that you can get the skills to transfer into the actual game?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it. I guess a lot of it. Personally, I think comes down to the coach.
Okay.
You can have the training, whether it's with your team or club or with Coerver, but when it comes to game day, you need to have the coach that for an 8 or 9 year old is like, go and be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Make a mistake, it's okay. Learn from your mistakes, and and the coach has to almost create that environment as well, so that our players feel comfortable going out and expressing themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I agree with that 100%.
I think at the younger ages as well, the earlier they start doing it, the better it is, because you try and do it with some of the older kids, not that they won't use it, but it's almost the young kids aren't afraid to make the mistake so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it with having coached over the winter all sorts of ages. I think Vinny's 07's a prime example that they'll use the moves, that they've got a lot of ability. And I think some of the older kids that I coached, they may be good players, but they're relying a lot on raw speed and so much rather than their skills.
Yeah, I think there's the flip side as well, where I think we all know of clubs where they get taught these moves, but then the coach almost is joysticking from the side, calling out the moves that they want to see. So I think I know of a club where the kids are just yelled at to do step over, scissors, and they're doing step overs and scissors when no players around them and actually going nowhere with the ball. But that's their selling point. And me and Fraser had this discussion the other day about clubs using those sort of things as selling points to bring kids in, because sometimes parents don't know any better. And he used the example of a guy juggling on a bench. It's like, you're not going to do that in a game, obviously, but the kids are impressed, the parents are impressed, and players are going there. So it's how can we do it, but also get it to transfer the game and not just have it, used as a gimmick almost,
Right. But it comes back as well into, having the right coach and creating the right environment, and also educating the parents.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but
No.
it's a challenge, but that's what it comes down to, I think. So.
Yeah, for sure.
What about coaching in your bare feet? Does that help?
It doesn't help me, that's for sure. Is anyone else got any questions before we move on to Richie's session plans? All right, let me just pull the first one up. You want to start with this one, Rich?
Yeah, so just before Rich starts, just try to put together 5 different, typical Coerver training sessions, and then obviously we can share them with everybody, but just an idea of how a Coerver session looks. So
yeah, and if you guys don't mind, I'll attach them to the recording that we send out. So we'll send the YouTube recording as usual, and I'll attach these 5 session plans too, if Rich and Si don't mind.
Yeah, so this one is a ball mastery example that we would start off with. And it's a good one because a lot of the time kids come in dribs and drabs, they're not always there right at 6 o'clock or whatever the time is to start. So you get them into 4 different groups, and they've all got a ball, so straight away they're moving, they're touching a ball, and basically they're given a different ball mastery in each square. So you can see obviously there's 4 groups of 3 there, so each group may be doing a different one, and the curriculum's evolved to change, whereby they've all done the same one, they've all done 4 different ones, so it could be toe taps in the top left, it could be soul rolls in the top right, and so on, and they go for, again, 45 seconds to a minute is what's actually in the curriculum. That can be at times too long, so again, you can tweak that to 30 seconds, whatever you want to do. A lot of it's flexible, And you'll see that as we go through the session plans. You can do this with high school kids. You can do this with 6-year-olds. You just have to change the tempo, the intensity, and the technical difficulty to a certain extent. We move on to a speed game, and this is probably one of the more popular ones, whereby there's a yellow pair of cones at the bottom that you see, red at the top. Two teams. The coach will shout different commands, whether it's to turn, to face their own group, to do a 180 turn, jump in the air, bend down, whatever it is, and then the coach will shout a colour, and they sprint through. So we're looking at the speed and the quickness over a short distance, which obviously a lot of sprints in soccer are. And you can flex that to go opposite directions. The coach can change it halfway through, so you might shout red and the coach changes to yellow, so how quickly can you turn and accelerate the opposite direction, and then we incorporate a ball into it, and also into moves into that too, and ball mastery. This is a 1v1 activity, like we said before. Typically start with 1v1s on a Monday. You would do different types of moves: scissors, step over, lead and push, and we have two going at the same time, so obviously they're supposed to do it with the same foot. So both players would do the scissors with the right foot, accelerate at an angle with the left foot, and then the next two, east-west go and north-south go, at alternate times. We can do that with both. We try and do that with both feet to incorporate and encourage two-footed players, which is important. This is a 1v1 activity. The yellow line that you see represents a shooting line. So rather than just you see kids shooting from far out, they have to cross that yellow line and then score in either goal. Once they shoot, they immediately defend. Or if the ball's out or they lose the ball, they immediately defend. So there's a transition element then. And having the shooting line encourages the kids to go 1v1 at their opponent and to really be creative, be positive. And obviously there's a boundary there to influence and encourage control. And they try and score in either goal. Bonus points can be added for moves. Liam mentioned earlier about how do we get them to do it in games. It's great to do it in a closed environment with no pressure. So we encourage bonus points too.
Good. This is your second one, I believe. Okay.
Yeah, three group ball mastery. You would number your kids in groups of 3, groups of 4, and then the first group would go. They would do a ball mastery, so you might do toe taps or whatever it is, touch rolls, and then after 3 or 4 seconds, they've gone 5 yards across a 20 by 20 grid, and then number 2s would go, and then number 3s would go. The way I've typically done it is to let them practice the drill, and then or exercise, and then to keep count of the touches, and then can they beat the score.
The next one, there we go.
So this is team tag. Again, this is a fun one that you can use with travel players. It's done right, they'll enjoy it. It's a keep away exercise. Eventually, it starts off without the ball, and it's just simply tag. And you time it. The coach times the amount of time that each player takes to tag any player. So the green player here is trying to tag a blue player, and then he gets out, high fives his teammate. The next green comes in, high fives any blue player. The blue players stay in if they're tagged. They're not out of the game. Once all the 5 players have gone, coach stops to watch, or 6 players, whatever it is, the coach stops to watch. They switch over, best time wins. You add a ball, so they've all got a ball, and the player has to kick the ball out of the square. Again, the player can go get the ball and come back in, which is fine, whilst the high five's going on and the player is replaced. And then we add a simple keep away element where it's 6v1 keep away. You can restrict that to 1 touch and so forth. Make the grid smaller so the kid isn't chasing the ball for 20 minutes. And just we talked about some of the moves earlier. Example of change direction, so you can make this into a relay to make it competitive as well. So just simply dribbling out to the cone, taking a touch, turning, and then playing with your next touch back in. So making sure that you turn with you're playing your pass back after your touch. Sorry, after your turn.
Therefore, the ball's out your feet. And we do obviously the turns we talked before, plus other ones. Again, you can make it tougher for better kids.
What one's the mata? I can't remember the mata.
That's the scissors and a pullback.
Oh, okay. One of my favourites. Here you go.
So this is the 1v1 game that we typically do on the second day of a camp. And it's a back to goal relay. So the coach is in the middle there with the balls. The two players come out. They battle for it 1v1. The goal is behind them. So the goal that's trying to score on is obviously behind them. We're encouraging them to get there quickly, protect the ball, and then if they can, turn and obviously score. You can progress to 2v2 with that one too.
I think that's that one. We'll just do the third one, then I'll send the other two. So where's the third? Save us keeping everyone on. Here we go. Oh, this one's named after you, Simo.
Yeah, apparently Simo's game.
No, this one.
Yeah. This is a good one too. Basically ball mastery. They have obviously you can see the green opposite the blue there. They're just doing any sort of ball mastery, and the coach shouts go or whatever it is, and they turn, sprint, and touch the cone behind them. He's the first one to come back and do the ball mastery, and we always encourage them to do whatever ball mastery the coach has indicated to show that they've got control. So you'll start with a ball and a sprint, leaving the ball there, and then you'll progress to dribbling, and then you'll do specified moves. We might do then two moves. So you'll do a move, you'll do ball mastery, toe taps maybe, then you'll do a drag back at the cone where you're at, and then you'll go and do a different move at the cone at the end line. And then again, you have to do the ball mastery when you get back to show that you've got control. That's really important. And you can also incorporate 1v1s as well with that. This is a partner speed dribbling game. So again, the groups are in groups of two, and there's different activities, usually 3 or 4. I think 3 they show here. The first on the left is where the player is simply trying to dribble with the ball. He can't go, or she can't go until they touch the ball. The partner is without a ball and they're trying to sprint to the other end. So it's trying to use fakes and fakes to fake out the opponent. The second one was with an overlap. Again, you look at a good first touch, and it's a simple race. One person with the ball, one without. And the third one, the player plays the ball through, overlaps, and tries to beat the player to the end, whilst the player who gets nutmegged has to turn 180 and speed dribble to the end. So with the start moves, again, that's a Wednesday day for moves. Typically, as you can see, the setup there, groups of 3, groups of 4, whatever it is, and they do the different moves that we mentioned earlier. So it could be a Maradona, it could be a Beardsley, flying Beardsley, pull push, high wave, whatever it is. We typically try and progress it to a race to add the competition element. But again, it's important to try and get the moves down with both feet before we progress to that. And this would be the stop-start 1v1 called Charlie's game after Charlie Cook. So you can see the green player has knocked the ball into the blue player. He's overlapped him to get goal side and protect the goal, and the blue player will try and dribble and score in either goal to his left or her left there. They have to go over the line if they want to score on the close goal. So they'd have to go over the red line, come back, and then score on the close goal.
Oh, good. All right, mate. Thank you. Like I say, I'll save these to PDF and then I'll send them out to everybody so everyone's got a copy. Just before we finish up, is there any questions out there on anything that Simo just went through? Anybody who's used the games and does something slightly differently? Anybody who's used the games found them really good? Any input out there? Oh.
I use a lot of the games with the juniors and the younger players. Even if we're not doing specifically a session on turns or moves, they they're always good, intro and warm up games. So I use it a lot with younger kids.
Okay, good. Anyone else?
I've used it quite a bit in the past with younger teams, and I think it's fantastic. The competition element of it, I think, makes it really good and keeps the kids really involved, and all by getting a lot of touches on the ball. So I think it's been really good.
Liam, I've been working for Coerver for quite a bit now, and I would say it's most effective with the 7s to 12s. I think the kids just love learning new moves, and I think being able to introduce them with a name attached to it is huge for the kids. My 2010s absolutely love Coerver stuff. More obviously the competition, the 1v1, 2v2 stuff. It's high intensity. It gets the kids moving. You could use it with the U11s, U12s. It gets them going. But I think it's most effective with the U8 to 10s. And I think they enjoy it.
Do they still use the names of the older players, or did they update it? Because I seem to remember there was a while they were going through an Iniesta, and there was an Iniesta, there was a Zidane, there was some others. They were trying to update the names from what I remember. Did they ever do that, Si? Or Vince, who would know?
So I went to the youth diploma like 2 years ago, and they were just starting to roll out the Iniesta, they call it Messi too.
The Messi, that was right, yeah.
But yeah, they're kind of transferring. Like it's the scissors, kind of called the scissors now. They've just kind of accepted that. But yeah, I would say there's a little bit of a transformation in terms of what the moves are called. But some of the old school coaches like Simo,
Yeah, Van Basten.
He's still calling it the Van Basten.
Yeah, Van Basten.
What's that one? A volley over the keeper's head from an angle?
No, it's the Van Basten is a scissors, or the Beckenbauer is an inside chop.
Oh, is it? Wow.
That's old school too. Also, there's the games that they play. There's different games. Obviously, I haven't seen all of them. There's tons of them. But there's like a Messi game, which is a possession game, and there's a lot of different shooting games and passing, counter-attack games and stuff. It's not just about the 1v1. And then they try and link everything in. So it's one thing that almost like you build your session plans. You start off maybe with a dynamic ball-based warm-up and go from there, technical, small side, and it's the same thing with Coerver. They build it up to eventually the scrimmage, like Si said, we're going to go bigger than 5v5.
No, that's great. I know this isn't a sales pitch, but for you guys, can you give us a bit of information on the Coerver diploma or anything else that's coming through from Coerver that could be useful, or courses that coaches might want to attend?
Well, no, there's online diplomas now for Coerver. So if you go to coerver.com, you'll see the online diplomas that anybody can take online. So I would encourage anybody, I'm not entirely sure how much they cost, but I'm going to encourage anybody who's interested to go and do those. We, Coerver, are rolling out a Diploma 2. I'm not entirely sure when that's going to come out, but we are planning on doing that.
Okay.
And obviously we've got our summer camps and our residentials and stuff like that. But the online stuff would be good as well. And anybody can just go to YouTube, as you know, Liam, and Google Coerver and just, they can choose what they want and implement it in the training sessions.
And I think if anyone's not seen it...
As long as I don't call it Coerver.
Yeah, if anybody's not seen it, you should go and try and find the footage of the Japanese kids doing Coerver. It's quite something to see. There's a few videos on YouTube of the mass participation in Japan with some of the kids they've got there. So I would try and find a video of that. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, it really is. No, you're right there.
Anything else? Anyone else with a question, comments? All right. Well, thanks very much, Si. Thanks, Simo. Vince for chiming in. And for everyone attending, like I say, I'll save this as usual. I'll upload it to YouTube, and then anybody who's not on tonight can watch it from there. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. See you.
Cheers, thanks.